Before we get to your scheduled video, please remember that likes and comments tell YouTube to promote our work to other people, and subscribing to the channel tells you when something new drops. You can also head to the link tree in the description to peruse my books, join us on Discord, or support us on Patreon. You can get episodes of Journey of Wrestling and Violent Profiles early, as well as a load of other treats. Even just $1 a month earns you a name drop for being cool. Thanks for listening, and enjoy the show. Greetings and salutations, fellow people trapped in a procedural. It is I, Eric J. Chucky, joined as always by the boy.
I want to do a little bit where I was like doing procedural dialogue, but I got nothing. Sorry.
You know who does have something? The people who are cool. And what they have is enough money to donate to me on Patreon. That includes our trash elite, which is Rob, and a guy from Ohio. Or a guy from Ohio and Rob. It can go both ways. And then everyone else, who we very much appreciate dearly, but you're not the elite, so we gotta put you separate. That's going to be Passion Killer 711, DG, Thomas Austin Jr., Destrucity KTL, Kitty Holbrook, and On the Tip of Your Tongue. Man, I always love when I almost forget that one because, I don't know, it's just thematically...
It seems designed to be that guy.
I like it. I like it a lot. You too can become cool by donating at the Patreon. I love that we said cool at the same time, and then that you said nothing else afterward. I don't know. It felt like a thing.
We didn't mean to do that.
No. You know what I did mean to do? Binge watch Agatha All Along in one day.
I made the mistake of trying to watch it a little bit at a time, bounced off the first 2 episodes, didn't like them very much, and then binge watched the rest and liked it better.
So when we do this, we do a spoiler-free review, very brief, it's going to be hard not to get into spoilers accidentally because of nomenclature.
So how about, as a spoiler-free review, you give a general overview of, like, how you feel about the season, like, emotionally, and whether or not you'd recommend it to someone who isn't a humongous Marvel head who's going to watch it anyway.
I have done both of those things in real life. You're asking me to read from a script that I didn't know I was preparing. Fantastic. Good job. It's almost like he's pretty good at this. He's shaking his head yes, because he's proud of himself. And he's definitely not making the Dumbledore having to drink the gross juice face right now. I thought this was phenomenal. It hit me at a point in my life that I needed it. That doesn't, that is obviously going to increase my letter grade, as it were, on E. You guess in the comments why I said that. This is not a visual medium. So yeah, it's going to increase my grade because I was susceptible to it. But I still think it was a really, really well put together show. It did a lot of the things I love to see in storytelling, filmmaking, TV show making, whatever you want to call that. Yeah, I unequivocally, it's one of my favorite Marvel series. Definitely in the top 3. Would I recommend it to people who aren't huge fans of Marvel? Because of some stuff that happens later, it does get really Marvel-y. And you kind of have to have seen WandaVision.
You're not someone who dislikes Marvel, just someone who wasn't already going to watch it because they watch all the Marvel stuff anyway.
There would have to be a certain type of person. If you like witch stuff, yes. 100% yes. You're already bought in, sold. I think this is both respectful of people who practice similar things IRL that this is obviously inspired by, and does a great job of having fun with those tropes in a fantastic setting. But you do kind of need to at least read or watch a video synopsis of WandaVision if you're not going to watch the entire series.
Which I would recommend you do anyway. It's good.
Yeah, it's got its own interesting stuff going on with it, but watching WandaVision does require some foreknowledge. Honestly, more than most of the series.
It's a rabbit hole.
Yeah, it is. This is why I said one of your recommended movies would be Endgame, because it's a trick. You got to watch all the rest of it
out. Mine is I will speak how this, emotionally or generally how this show made me feel, my general thoughts of it, and whether or not I'd recommend it to someone who isn't already bought into all Marvel things anyway. This show was fine. It was pretty good. Certainly great fun at certain parts. Other parts I feel were substantially weaker and didn't really translate, didn't really hit for me. I would recommend it to anyone who likes the craft, who is generally witchy in their day-to-day life, knows that culture, is conversant in those memes, understands that, speaks the local language. I think you'll have a better time with this show than I did. But having said all that, if you're like a mid-Marveler, like someone who watches the things that they find interesting, or this and that, but isn't really super concerned about knowing all the canon or watching every single thing, this feels missable to me.
Yeah, honestly, I did the opposite as well. We have a friend, it's my mom, who likes the very superhero high action aspect of Marvel. Honestly, most of her favorite TV properties are intense and don't really let up, and movies and stuff like that. So I said, you could watch it. I don't think you need it for context for anything. I think the only thing you're going to get out of it is that's why this person is here and who this guy is. And I feel like
you don't care about that anyway.
They're going to set that up in whatever next property those characters are in. So it's not, it lifts right out of the overall continuity.
But as you can tell, much like our previous podcast about Vox Machina, we have some pretty strongly divergent opinions on this one. Not as divergent in that one of us didn't like the thing so much and one of us liked it okay. It's up the chain on that tier list of one of us really loved it and one of us thought it was fine.
So
which
usually,
is almost more interesting.
Yeah, usually when I watch a show, I don't watch it all in one day. Even though I quote unquote binge watch it, I'm bad at that. I got to ADHD. I got to go do something else. And I did break this up, but I also did watch it like everything except for the last 3 episodes. I watched until they debuted, and I watched it within a 24-hour period, the entire thing.
Yeah, this one really hit for you.
Yeah, really, really strongly. We are going to start getting into spoiler territory. Assume we are going to spoil the ending immediately because of the levels of spoilers we're going to talk about. If you guys don't want to hear that, leave a comment telling us if you're excited or not to watch the show, and then come back later to hear our opinions.
If you got the ability to mute your tab, let it play in the background, like, comment, subscribe. You're always welcome here at the Two Nerds Podcast. This is for your benefit, not ours. I'm happy to spoil this show for you. I don't want that for you if you don't want it.
Yeah. I will have to say, one of my favorite things about this show, aside from everything, is that they let Agatha be a villain.
Yeah, that's actually one of the things I quite like and was worried they weren't going to do.
Yes.
I was very concerned, and this is partially, I've talked a lot on the podcast about how I think ultimately I like binging TV shows more than I like watching them week to week. It makes me like a property more to be able to just absorb it like that. And this is where I think I made a mistake in watching the first 2 episodes of this show when they came out and not waiting. Because the first 2 episodes of this show really let you believe that they are planning on doing a redemption arc for Agatha Harkness.
I like a good redemption arc. I loved the Loki series, but that's not Agatha.
Everything has to be that.
Yeah, that too. And the first 2 episodes are very different from the rest of the series.
Very different. The first episode is an episode of WandaVision.
Yes.
And that's fine because that is the tonal bridge. And then the second episode is farting on a snare drum. It's genuinely my least favorite episode of the series, and I don't think it's very good TV.
When, in any other scenario, when you aren't coming away from such a unique series and set of circumstances that was WandaVision, the second episode would have been the first episode, and then you would have bridged into the rest of the season. It probably would have been easier to digest in that way, and it just overall a more comfortable watch. for people. It reminded me a lot of the second episode, that is, like Desperate Housewives level comedy. And I'm not a huge fan of Desperate Housewives. Out of all of the...
But that is an absolutely pinpoint accurate comparison.
I would say out of all of the dramas of that variety that I watched during a certain period of my life, it's probably the one I liked the most. They had really punchy humor and really sarcastic, snide people sniping at each other, and that was a lot of fun. Sorry if there was a weird dramatic jump there. I had sort of a two-brain thing, couldn't figure out if I was White or Eric. Anyway, I think the bigger part of the problem, like I was saying, the biggest part of the problem of you watching the first two episodes and then moving on and not getting to the rest until the show was done is that those first two episodes are so tonally, structurally different from the rest of the series.
And they're necessary.
Yes.
The second episode is structurally, and for plot reasons, very necessary for the story. So it's not like they could cut that content. But I didn't like it and felt it was, like, not very good.
It was a herald of a show that you weren't interested in watching.
Basically, I thought, oh, man, this is the show? That's unfortunate.
Much like how when we cut out of watching the Ms. Marvel show.
Yeah, it was just one scene that was we both stopped in that scene, which I still think is funny that we both stopped at the exact same place, is separately from each other. But it was the Herald of Galactus. It was, oh, this is the show. Oh, well, I'm committed to watching this, but oh.
We were not committed to watching that. It was for a different audience than we are, and this, to a certain extent, was not for you.
No, certainly not. I'm not terribly into the culture that this is riffing on.
Much in the same way that I don't really care that much for Captain America Winter Soldier, whereas you hail it as one of the better MCU films.
Yeah, I still think it's probably, in terms of just a pure movie, separate from the MCU, separating it out into its own little tiny universe, I think it holds up as one of the strongest separate movies, even to this day. But, like, this show also could pretty much just be lifted right out of the MCU. It almost doesn't touch it at all until the very end.
Yeah, I feel like we're going to circle back around. And I think tonally, a couple episodes toward the end, you get a lot of MCU-y stuff.
Yeah, you get... It is tonally, but it does just sort of lift right out tonally and structurally and plot-wise for most of the series. And that's not necessarily bad. It's just not what I'm here in this particular space for.
It is a very deep, niche portion of the overall tapestry. One could overlook it, but gosh, in my case anyway, why would you?
Yeah, no, this was for you.
Yeah, this was a show for me, and I needed it. I ate it up. Delicious. I might watch it again, and that's me talking about a series.
Yeah, he doesn't do that.
No, not anymore. The last time I watched Friends again, I was like, maybe never again. I'm feeling that way about Roseanne right now. But, yeah, so a brief summary. You have better word at this.
Oh, I just realized we didn't do it all. We didn't summarize the Vox Machina season at all.
Well, let's do that right now in this unrelated episode.
I just realized we didn't do it at all. We had enough to talk about. We didn't need to.
I'm trying not to do what here on the podcast we call the Guardians of the Galaxy effect and just talk about how great the show was and quote it. And,
So this is... I'm trying to categorize this into a plot type. I don't know that I'm going to do a good job. So I'll just say that this show is best described as similar to WandaVision in that it is a series of slightly differently set vignettes in different not genres like WandaVision, but in different sets, different plot and visual archetypes. Most of it is that.
It definitely, in that sense, feels like a sequel series to WandaVision.
Yeah, you do feel that coming through pretty strongly throughout the show.
And it does what a good sequel does, in that it takes the basic frame of what WandaVision had,
Jumping through time to various different, types of TV show.
but twists it, turns it on its head a little bit. You're not doing the exact same let's revisit sitcoms or let's revisit shows of this variety or whatever. It's the setting is going to be drastically different each time, with the exception of the road. And it's going to feel iconic every time. We are going to visit iconic sets, locations, times, and clothings. And you get to kind of wrap yourself in that while the characters go through whatever it is they're going through.
Which I think is pretty well done. It is that combined with the witches. It's the road. It's a yellow brick road. It's the Wizard of Oz.
To me, it's kind of like the hero's journey mixed with like a series of trials, which is it is a little bit of, and then there were none. Agatha Christie. Almost a closed circuit loop mystery where you are trapped in a place and you can't escape and people keep getting eliminated, and how. I was going to say Alice in Wonderland, but yeah, Wizard of Oz is more applicable to the theming. It's bizarre and often menacing in its weirdness.
Weirdly focused on shoes at certain points in the narrative.
Look, sometimes you get crushed by a house and a bitch steals your shoes. That becomes important culturally.
And at one point, so all of the main characters, except for poor Kitty, are witches in one type or another.
So this is something I actually loved. In the second episode, Agatha is gathering up this non-coven to go with her on the road. And they don't find an Earth Witch. Agatha doesn't want to follow up on what she believes is the obvious clue to who the Earth Witch is. She's got some history. So instead she goes to her neighbor, who is a green thumb, and knows all the little tips and tricks on how to, make your plants grow well and make them look like this. And like in a very real, practical, real world application, that's all witchcraft is it's knowing how to treat the soil, knowing what natural remedies will help you out with certain maladies. And I'm not talking like essential oils, but like
being a wise woman.
Where do you think medicine comes from? It
Yes.
comes from plants. Knowing the plants, you don't have to buy the medicine, kind of thing. And that's definitely what Kitty, we're referring to, that 70s show there. I've forgotten her name, Mrs. Hart.
She says it so often, too, and so insistently.
Sharon Davis.
Actress
Deborah Jo Rupp, who I love. She gets kind of recruited, but
I've never seen her in anything she wasn't amazing in.
No, she's phenomenal. And she kills it here,
very
too.
much including this.
Yeah. But I like that. She's part of the club, even if she wouldn't identify herself as a member. And especially down to when they start doing the chant at the end of episode 2, she's into it. She's like, oh, is this what we're doing? Yeah, sisterhood. Let's do this. I just, her enthusiasm was fantastic.
But there are many scenes, this is a spoiler, insofar as White already mentioned, and then there were none as part of this. As they go through, the premise of the series is essentially that Agatha Harkness, finally being released from the spell that Wanda put her under at the end of WandaVision, presumably for a sequel series, and then the sequel series happened. She is finally released, and her power is gone because Wanda took it, so she has to get it back by following the Witch's Road, the very storied, legendary path witches can take to get more direct Marvel energy blasty powers, as opposed to the more low-key magic they can do without them.
Analog witchcraft, they call it.
Yeah, they actually literally have a term for it, which I think was actually pretty good world building. If you want the energy blasty powers, you kind of have to follow the road. And Agatha Harkness is hailed in this universe. She is known by other witches as the only survivor of the Witch's Road. That's how she got this power in the first place, sort of thing. Is the story. So she, at the insistence of the wonderfully named Teen, is gathering up a coven to go do that, and the Witch's Road takes a heavy toll and kills apparently everyone except Agatha who's ever walked it. So a lot of them die.
There's a small, semi-large callback in a presentation there. At one point, one of the witches asks, when you've gone down the road before, how many witches emerged? How many survived? And she holds up the Doctor Strange one, which is that's good. That's good sauce.
It's good sauce. It's just mentioning the Wizard of Oz parallels. When one of the witches dies, her boots do literally curl up like the Wicked Witch of the West.
Yeah. How deep do we want to go into the plot here?
I feel like if we need it, I'm perfectly happy to do it because it is an interesting plot. But I feel like if we don't need it, we didn't do it on the last one.
Yeah, sure. The time compression means that our track of time is off. So I apologize if we go a little long or a little short here. I really love the way this series handles twists.
I like the way this series handles twists.
One of the things... Okay, so the praise I have for Guardians of the Galaxy 3, a movie which broke my heart, is that it opens with a song that tells you the entire plot of the movie from multiple different perspectives depending on how you take the lyrics. This series does the same damn thing and keeps repeating that song in slightly different variations to help tie everything together.
It has an arc song that it uses very well.
Yes, and all of the episodes are titled after parts of the song. And
the song being the chant song sort of handed down from witch to witch, ballad as it's called, explaining how to reach the Witch's Road, how to walk it, and that if you manage it, there are prizes at the end. There is what you're searching for, what is missing from your life. It is the, instructions to how to summon Bloody Mary, but for witches who want to be able to blast shit with their hands.
And I dig it too, because that temptation of find what you're missing, find what you're looking for, etc. It's so simple. This is such a dirt simple plot. It's just executed really well. You have that opportunity for people to be deceptive to others about what it is they're truly searching for. You have that opportunity for people to be deceptive to themselves about what they're truly searching for. There is clever wording and misunderstanding and not quite unreliable narrator, but people who are unaware or self-deceptive or being deceived by others who accept things because of these deceptions and just kind of move on. And it's clean. Like, that's something that's so easy to leave plot holes or weird threads, and there's not a lot of them, if there are any.
There are some.
I was bought in. I had the ticket and I was taking the ride. My guy here was in the back of the tram, leaning.
I was on.
Sunglasses on. This is fine.
I'm not going to get too far into them. But I do think there are standout moments in this series that are very good, that I liked quite a bit. One of the characters is a clairvoyant who basically has their consciousness. It is temporally not locked into their current physical body.
This is something that those of you who are, familiar with this kind of genre will pick up on around the third or fourth episode.
Yeah, they really sprinkle little moments throughout the entire series of this person clearly having a moment where their consciousness from a different point in the timeline is in their body, and then it goes away. They tie this all together into her big, moment of basically all of the proper witches in this series get a big moment of, this is me, this is what I do, this is my kind of witchcraft, this is how I express my power. Hers is honestly probably the most well done thing in the series. It is incredibly well foreshadowed, it is incredibly well built up, and the payoff is astounding.
Yes. And that's one has to also praise the actress Patti LuPone for her portrayal here.
By the way, just a fucking awesome person.
Yeah.
I watched her on an episode of Hot Ones Versus with Aubrey Plaza, and it was Patti LuPone rules.
I'll have to check that out.
No spoilers for the series in that. Just in that episode, it's just you watch it. She's great. Endeared me to that character more because I watched the actress be so charming in the first thing I've ever seen her do, because I saw that way before the series.
I had a somewhat of a reversal there, or inversion rather. I like Aubrey Plaza a lot. I think she's a really good personality. I like seeing her in things. It's kind of fun to see her have aged. I don't know if that makes much sense, but a lot of actors get locked in as immortal. Your Paul Rudd, for example.
Well, a lot of actors fight mortality with every fiber of their being.
That also. Or
they've been blessed with genetics crafted by like Thor himself, like Paul Rudd.
But when they said that they were casting her for this show, I at that moment was like, man,
there's a thing they could do that would be pretty cool.
And they did that exact thing, and I am so glad.
I'm going to be honest, I had the exact same thought, and it's the only reason I got who that character was. Because it's not that they bury the lead, they actually really don't, but only if you're into witchy shit. Again, I'm not.
Episode 2, she showed up in an outfit that character wears.
Yeah, it's true. And I went, oh, they did the thing! Yeah. It could have just, it's the MCU, it could have just been like a reference to the thing. Also,
which is something I love about the new MCU, the post-Endgame MCU. They're so happy to be comic books. Fuck it, put them in the yellow costume.
Right. Also, after so much speculation and so much hype, this season, the sequel to WandaVision, we get our first official drop of Mephisto.
Yes. It was just a
throwaway line. But he's mentioned. Mephisto mentioned.
Yeah. I did have some small spoilers because I've been on the internet.
I had almost none.
So I did have the identity of Teen ruined for me, but honestly, I should have picked up on it way sooner. That's just on me.
I did not have the identity of Teen. Teen's identity is secret in universe.
Yes.
He has a spell on him, a sigil cast, so that when he says his name, you can't hear it. It is like Charlie Brown adulted. And
if he talks too much about his identity, it just gets muted.
Yeah, it just you don't hear it. It's not focused on. It's zoned out in the narrative, or literally, actually in universe muted. And I also had no spoilers for who that was. I absolutely should have caught on to who it was sooner, because looking back, they're not subtle. It's not subtle.
Boy, that red-haired guy sure is on fire a lot. I wonder if he's Johnny Storm.
But it just didn't. Right over the top of the dome.
And to me, that is something that is highlighting this as a good series, because you don't really have time to be thinking about that. There's so much cool shit happening.
I was spending time getting to know Teen as a person, because and this is, I think, a good bit of storytelling. For the first bit of the series, he doesn't come across as a fully fleshed out person. He comes across as a pet. As Agatha Harkness's new morality pet. Her little puppy that she's going to get that's going to make her a good person now.
Yeah, I was so bought in that I didn't.
That's how he is structurally put by the narrative. Like, he is framed that way.
And I love that, because spoilers, is how he's framing himself.
Yeah, it is revealed later. This is a choice he's making to endear himself and get what he wants, that's really actually well done.
I love how much people are playing against each other. How much once you realize that Agatha is not a good person, this is not her redemption story, you can watch her think about how do I double blind fool these people into doing what I need them to do to get what I want.
This is like a certain kind of genre, a certain kind of heist movie.
Yes, I would agree with that.
It is the Maltese Falcon. It is like the everyone wants the gold and only one person can get the gold, and they're all sort of fighting over it, but not outright. They're backstabbing and betraying, and it's not fully that. I'm sorry. Agatha is in that genre.
She is, but she has to act like not only that she's on their side, but is clearly doing small acts of evil enough that they're not catching on to her real long-term goals.
Yeah, like she's just being shitty enough that she comes across as a shitty person trying to be better. That's such a fine line to walk, and once the show tips its hand to you that this is not a redemption story, it is so fun to watch her do that and pull it off.
Initially, the final episode, the first half of it, I'm not going to get too much into detail here. I wasn't super bought into it because I was like, wow, what an unnecessary thing after it feels like the show is over. But what a beautiful bow they put on showcasing that even though she is a villain, she is someone we would describe as evil and having selfish motivations, she is still a person and is still complex and has layers. But it also showcases how every time she has the opportunity to do the wrong thing for herself, she will take it. No matter what other complications and layers there are.
She's a person. She has people she loves. She has heartache. She has tragedy in her backstory. But she is a shitty person.
Mm-hmm.
And not through happenstance and not through circumstance, through choice. Agatha Harkness is the kind of person who consistently makes the choice. If there's an opportunity to make a choice that is a shittier thing that benefits her more, she will almost always take it. There are rare exceptions, and thus those stand out even more by contrast.
There's also a point later in the series where she kind of tips her hand a little bit that she is more aware of what's going on than anybody else. And they highlight it, thankfully, because it's very subtle. I don't think I caught it the first time.
There's a point really early in the series where she does that.
That's also true. But when she starts getting exasperated, that mask slips. And this is kind of part of why I want to rewatch it, because knowing how everything turns out, how much of this is built up to become so organically pulled off, the magic trick, as it were. And it's just, what a complicated role to play that Kathryn Hahn nails.
Quite well. Kathryn Hahn's performance is astoundingly good. She was great as Agatha in the original series and Agnes in the original WandaVision. But Agatha came across a little two-dimensional intentionally. She's an arch-villain. And she played it up. She ate that scenery with like a fork and a knife and a smile. And I loved it. Here, she's much more nuanced. She's much more, layered. And, importantly, just as shitty of a person. Alright, so, I want to be honest with you, viewer. I liked this series. I did not love this series. But I don't think it's the series' fault. I think that second episode wasn't very good. But I don't think it's the series' fault that I didn't love it. I feel like this one is just at the edge of TV for me. And there was enough there for me to bite into that I liked it, but not enough for me to bite into that I really loved it.
Whereas for me, it did that magical act of riding the line between good things happening to people who deserve it, bad things happening to people who deserve it, people being villainous without being two-dimensional or too successful in a Breaking Bad sense, people being heroic without being an idiot about it. All of the small pieces came together, and then they dipped it in my favorite candy coating, or one of my favorite candy coatings, and served it to me on a silver platter for free. So, thanks. Yeah, this was a great experience. 5 stars. We'll
Literally
come
for
again.
free. Disney Plus is in a bundle with my phone bill now. I don't pay anything extra for it.
Yeah, I was really, really taken with this one. So we've been very complimentary. Do you have any other criticisms about the show before we leave off?
I have a few stuff that just pulled me out of it a little bit.
Yeah, let's hear it.
I have trouble structuring things as a criticism for something that I generally like and don't have much in the way of negative feelings for. Just didn't really love it. But I'll try and be as direct as I can to try and make it simpler. I understand the framing of teen in the early series is an intentional sort of code switching choice that character is making to bring forth more certain parts of their personality that make them seem less threatening and more biddable. I recognize that is a choice that the creators of the show made to make the eventual twist with that character more surprising and thus enjoyable. I still didn't like that character very much during this portion because I don't like doormats.
I have a similar problem with the Star Wars film Rogue One. In the first half of the movie, the 2 principal characters are real jerks to each other, to everyone.
And that's an intentional choice the creators are making, but that doesn't make them more fun to watch.
Right, and that's the problem I have. So I commiserate with you on that.
Don't generally like doormats, and more importantly, I generally dislike doormats the movie is telling me I'm supposed to be rooting for.
Right.
If I'm supposed to be rooting for you, I need you to have a spine. You don't have to be like mean, but you need to be able to stand up for yourself. When the character brings forth more of their actual personality, or rather a different aspect of their personality, and stands up for themselves and when he starts like pushing back, instantly, much better character. And I understand that's a personal thing. This is a good TV making. This is a good fiction choice. I just didn't like it. It's not what I enjoy watching.
It made it harder for you to. It was a higher hurdle to clear to watch.
Exactly. I don't like the Green Witch as a character. She felt pretty until she opens up later in the series. Again, same thing. She felt more one note than the other witches, and that's hard to do because they all start as Planet of Hats, and then they spread out over the course of the series into people. And her hat,
in that way, very much like a heist movie.
Yeah, her hat exactly. This isn't a heist movie, but it's so close.
Isn't it though?
That's the thing. That's what I'm talking about. It almost is. It's just some structural pieces that are missing.
There's no jazz.
but it is kind of a heist movie, and I love heist movies. But it's not because there's too much journey, not enough planning.
Right, I would agree with that. Yeah.
But it could be a heist movie. You could easily recut this into a heist movie. Anyway, her hat is on firmer, and she's more happy to be wearing it than the rest of those people who would prefer you see them as like more than their hat. But when you eventually crack past that into her being more pragmatic, into her emotional journey, I like that a lot. And I'm trying to figure out how to phrase this last, because I do have another criticism, and I'm just trying to figure out how to phrase it.
I wish they had told me more about what happened to Senor Scratchy. He was there for a minute. Where did he go?
Gone.
Did you just leave?
He's gone.
Did you just get a car and go to Vegas?
Who knows?
Is he living in his own TV show universe?
He was Agatha's familiar, and Agatha has a new familiar now.
Rude. He was great.
He's named after Nicholas Scratch, and
sure. In
a lot of ways, Agatha has a new one of those now too.
Yeah.
but I can't remember it, and thus it must not have been very important.
Often that is the case. Tomorrow he will come downstairs
And go, that's this!
Yeah, and it was critical. But here we are. I really don't have much to complain about with this show. I agree with you. It wasn't a perfect series or anything. There were some jokes that didn't hit. There were some parts that were a little heavy-handed. But
I mean, yeah, but I'm not going to belabor those.
No.
They don't even bear bringing up. Every Marvel series has some of that.
I feel like every series has some of that. Even something as well-made as Peacemaker, there are only so many dick jokes I need in a given episode. And they surpass that. They want to make sure I'm all set on dick jokes.
It's like it's like going to a restaurant that gives you a huge portion size so you have leftovers, you know? They want to make sure you're all full up.
On dicks.
On dicks.